for the resumption. Good afternoon, everyone. Please stand as we begin with a word of prayer for this public transport operators meeting for the resumption of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening to give you thanks for another day that you have blessed us with and for the opportunities that you have presented to us. And as we deliberate on the eve of the resumption of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands, we ask that you be in our deliberations and that you guide us so that we will continue to be safe. We'll be able to keep our visitors safe, keep our families safe, and continue to grow the British Virgin Islands from strength to strength. These things we ask in your name. Amen. You may be seated. Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Andrew Saint Hilaire, Deputy Secretary in the Ministry of Transportation Works and Utilities. Lana, pick up something from somebody. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to introduce the panel here at the head table for this public transport operators meeting on the resumption of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands. Starting on my immediate right is the Honorable Minister, Honorable Kai Reimer, Minister for Transportation Works and Utilities.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Then we have on my immediate left Mr. Javon Parsons, the Director of the Taxi and Livery Commission.
Good afternoon, all.
Then we have Mr. Dave Smith, Security Manager with the BVI Ports Authority.
Good afternoon.
And on my extreme left, Mr. Vance Lewis, the CEO of the Cyril B. Romney Tortola Pier Park. And on my far right, well, not too far, we have Mr. Calvin Smith, who is the Tourist Board representative on the Taxi and Livery Commission Board. So once again, good afternoon to everyone. The purpose of this meeting is, as it is the eve of the return of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands, a premier destination for tourists, we thought it fitting that we would bring a select grouping of you, the public transport operators, together to have a discussion as we talk about the security controls, the protocols, and all of what you need to do to ensure that you keep the industry safe, and at the same time for you to ask the panel the questions that you may have so that we can all be working together from the same agenda as we embark on cruise ship arrivals in the new regular starting tomorrow, July 1. So first off, I am going to give the minister an opportunity to set the pace for this briefing, and then we will take it from there, going down the line with what's happening from the commission's end and what's happening from the Pier Park angle. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, DS. Good afternoon, everyone, again. Oh, everybody sound like you're sleeping. Good afternoon. I know, as the DS mentioned, this is a meeting to get an update as to what will take place on the arrival of the ship tomorrow. And though it's a bit late, information came in a little late, and we apologize for that. But here we are, and we have all the players involved, members from the CB Romney Pier Park. They would decipher most of the information that you are waiting to hear. And, you know, based on the little briefing that I got, I know that things should be the same as it was pre-COVID, despite the fact that we would have a list for those who are vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated. So as we go further into the meeting, we'll be able to discuss some of the issues and some of your concerns. But what I'm excited about is that we are welcoming the first ship back to our shores. And you, the taxi operators who are the ambassador for this territory, I'm happy that you're here. You're interested in understanding what your role will be. And, we look forward to visiting or having the guests visit our shores. But we want to make sure that everyone remains safe. Those who are vaccinated, you continue to practice the measures that are in place. Those who are not vaccinated as well, always wear your mask, make sure you have sanitizers, and practice social distancing. What I can tell you is that we have a few cases rising in our territory, and we should remain mindful that COVID is still around, COVID is still here. But as we try to balance lives and livelihood, we hope that you would do your part as we are doing our part as well, and make sure that we remain the safe destination that they have us on the international scene. So I look forward to the discussion, and any questions I'm sure that we will be able to answer here on the panel. I say thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Reimer, for setting the tone for this evening's briefing. And as we are operating in the new regular, this proceeding is being recorded and presented live via YouTube, and the link is already being circulated among the taxi fraternity, which means that at the conclusion of this briefing, it will be available for any of the taxi operators that are not present now or not able to view it at this time. You can play it back at your convenience to gather the pertinent information that you may need to help guide you as you operate from the cruise pier beginning tomorrow. So I now turn things over to the Director of the Taxi and Livery Commission, Mr. Javon Parsons, who will give us a reminder as to the protocols that you as taxi drivers, public transport operators, is expected to adhere to. It's a reminder. It's nothing new that we're introducing, but a reminder as to what the protocols entails for operating as a public transport operator during this new regular. Mr. Parsons.
Good afternoon, all. It's a pleasure to be here as we meet once again to iron out the little bit of kinks that we have on the eve of the arrival of our first ship back to our territory for quite some time. As Mr. St. Hilaire said, I'm just here to reiterate to you the protocols that already exist. As you guys would know, the COVID-19 transportation guidelines of 2020 would have stated a few things. You're expected to adhere to the social distancing guidelines, sanitization practices, disinfectant practices, all of that kind of stuff within this era that we're facing right now. One of the biggest things, the questions that I was asked going forward is if we're expected to adhere to the gold seal measures. Since the 15th of June 2021, we're allowing vaccinated passengers to free flow throughout our territory, right? So we've carried that on to the Pier Pack. So we're not expected to disenfranchise any one of you guys. You all are welcome to the park in the morning. And as the vaccinated passengers come off, they'll be able to select from whatever guys that show up, and you'll be able to do your part. I'll just like to reiterate, though, you need to adhere to the COVID-19 guidelines. Those of you who are vaccinated and those of you who are not vaccinated, adhere to those guidelines. The inspectors will be out there doing their rounds, ensuring that you guys are following the guidelines as such too as well. Those inspections will take place in the morning before you do your rounds. You're expected to walk with your extra mask. You're expected to walk with your hand sanitizers, a little bit of alcohol, disinfecting tools as well. After each trip, you're expected to disinfect your vehicle before you return back to the pair pack and try to take another round. Okay? So bear that in mind. If you guys do not have the guidelines, they'll be disseminated again in the evening before you go to the pair pack in the morning. Okay? So you guys will have that stuff. My number is listed as well. If you don't have it, call me. I'll send it out. I will make sure that it is in your hands. My number is 496-6835. So if you don't have it, call me. 496-6835. I will send it out.
And I want Mr. Parsons to also highlight how it's going to be handled on departures from the pair pack with respect to capacity in public transport. So if you can touch on that in terms of a full vehicle, a partially full vehicle, families traveling together.
All right. Based on those COVID-19 transportation guidelines, as you would know, you're expected to practice the social distancing guidelines within your vehicle. So if you have a 14-seater, your capacity will be 6 to 7 persons. 28-seater, subsequently the same. Social distance every other seat. If you're carrying a group or a family that has traveled together, is roaming together, that family is okay to ride in your bus. If it's 10 people, they're okay to go with you. But you're expected to practice the guidelines within the vehicle. Got it?
Great. We will take questions once all of the panelists have given their perspective. So thank you very much, Mr. Parsons. We will now move on to Mr. Dave Smith, Security Manager from the BVI Ports Authority. He's going to speak to us on the security aspects. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon again. All of you have operated from the pair park before. So basically there's nothing new except for COVID-19 and all the social distancing and all that. Tomorrow morning we would have security at the gate as usual and checking the buses as they come in. Some of the things that we will be checking for, as usual, the cleanliness of your bus. You, the driver, should be wearing a uniform. The uniform is the uniform shirt that you had prior to COVID, and the black pants, closed up shoes, properly groomed, and all of that. You guys, this is nothing new to you guys. We will be looking at that tomorrow. We'll be looking at the cleanliness of your vehicle coming in, and again, we used to do that prior to COVID. We are going to use the list as it was before. So we're going to break out that list. I'm sure that a lot of you still know where you were on the list, what number you were. So you ought to show up to the park tomorrow, starting from numbers 1. Okay? We wouldn't necessarily have people out there calling the numbers as usual. I think you guys do know where you are on the list. So we would have our list, and we would be checking. We would also be asking the drivers that are fully vaccinated, please walk with your cards so that you can show us. The reason for this is if there are people coming from the ship or guests, and they specifically ask for a driver that is fully vaccinated, we would know who is on the inside that is fully vaccinated, so we can then steer the people to you. As was mentioned earlier, everyone is welcome. So I think whether you are partially or not vaccinated, you are welcome, but we emphasize for you to follow the protocols that were already spoken about. Okay? As usual, the tour buses, well, the Romneys and the Foys and all those, they would be inside. They would all go through the same protocols as you, and they would be up at the front of the line. The 5 spaces that you guys are used to parking in, those spaces won't be available tomorrow. You would come around to where the 30 spaces are. You guys are familiar, correct? You following me? And 10 buses would be allowed inside tomorrow. Okay? You would park in the first 5 spaces on the left and the first 5 spaces to the left. To the right. I had 2 lefts? Yeah. Okay. So the first 10 spaces would be allotted for you. There would be a spacing then left, some spaces then left in between your area and the tour buses. Okay? Right, so basically a buffering zone, so that when you guys come in, or when the guests arrive, whether they're freelancing or going to a tour bus, it wouldn't be mixed up. We would have people on the ground tomorrow that would be working the pier as usual and looking out for you guys so that you can be in compliance with what we expect of you while you're operating from the park. I guess after this, we would take any questions that you may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for giving us the security overview. I'm now going to invite Mr. Vance Lewis, the CEO of the Cyril B. Romney Tortola Pier Park, to address you as the CEO and on the eve of the return of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you very much, DS St. Hilaire. So basically, everyone said most of the things, especially Dave said a lot of the things I was going to say, but a little bit about the ship. It is the Celebrity Millennium. It will have 404, I believe, passengers and 10 children who are less than 16. All the passengers are fully vaccinated, and by fully vaccinated, they would have had 2 shots plus 2 weeks after the last shot. The children under 16, as they are not eligible to be vaccinated, will be traveling with their parents. But everyone would have had a negative COVID test prior to boarding the ship. Okay? So we can treat it as basically a fully vaccinated ship. Our protocols call for better than 95%, and that is certainly above 95%. As Dave expressed on the western side, the first 10 slots, 5 on each side, will be used for the independent taxis, such as yourself, and the front will be for the tour operators. We're going to use one as security personnel. There will be 6 security personnel, 6-ish, and we're going to use one of them to help guide, do some light dispatching duties to guide them to vehicles for tours and so forth. And we expect everyone to make sure that they, look, it's business as usual, it's business as normal, except that we're going to have a COVID protection layer on top of it. So you're going to make sure you're fully masked up, make sure you do all the COVID protections that are necessary. And we should be normal. But the ship is lightly loaded because it is home porting out of a Caribbean port, out of St. Martin. And because it's home porting out of St. Martin, and this is just really the resumption of cruise, we have a pretty lightly loaded ship. It's not very heavily loaded. I hope we have a very good day, and you have a very productive day tomorrow in terms of making some money and in terms of staying safe. That's the important thing. Thank you very much, DS. I think if I forgot to say anything, it may come out in questioning.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. If you can remind us the ship that will arrive tomorrow in the British Virgin Islands, it will be sailing directly to the British Virgin Islands from which port in the Caribbean?
So the ship would have left St. Martin, gone to Barbados, and then St. Lucia, and then come to the BVI. There were a couple of cities in between, and then it goes back to St. Martin. And the ship will be coming here every other week, basically. You'd have seen celebrity ships before, and some of you may even have seen the clip of the ship in St. Martin, in St. Lucia yesterday. Okay, That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I'm now going to ask Mr. Calvin Smith from the Tours Board to endorse our happenings for tomorrow. He represents the tourism sector on the Taxi and Livery Commission Board on behalf of the Director of Tourism. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon to all in attendance. Basically, from the tourism standpoint, we are here to oversee the whole process, that everything runs smoothly between the visitor and the locals. Basically, reiterating what Mr. Parsons said about vaccinations. Make sure that you present your cards and stuff so we could know who's vaccinated from who's not. Also, you could make sure you have your sanitizers, your masks, everything. You follow the protocols, because the mandate is to keep yourself safe as well as the passengers. So we just want a smooth transition, and we're going to have some personnel over there to oversee how things are running. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for underscoring our tourism product and the necessity to adhere to all that you're expected to do so that we can continue to move forward in unity. I'm now going to ask the minister who is going to, the minister who is now going to make some more comments, and then we will start to field your questions. Honorable Reimer.
Thank you, DS. I just want to also make clear that representing the government, we are not here to promote vaccination or anything. The difference is when we met the last time, we spoke about what those passengers will be coming, they'll be vaccinated, and they may request vaccinated operators. So I just want you to know that we're not here saying that you should get vaccinated or that's your choice. We're not making it mandatory for anyone, but I just want to reemphasize that I ask you and I urge you to be safe as you go out there, because you're playing a vital role in terms of these passengers. And I also want to acknowledge all the drivers who have, since we reopened on December 1st, who have partaken in the quarantine program, who have been keeping us safe, who have been taking persons around the territory to their homes and to the facilities. You are appreciated. We appreciate the work that you have done, and you are most experienced in being safe. And I just want you to continue to practice that as we now have this first cruise ship coming into the territory. So if there's any questions, we'll be, whatever we can answer, we'll definitely answer.
Thank you, Honorable Reimer. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Parsons. You're going to field your questions, and then the mic will move to the respective panelists to answer your specific questions. But before that, Mr. Parsons has one other point he wants to underscore. Mr. Parsons?
Yes, thank you, Mr. St-Hilaire. There was one intricate piece that I left off while I was addressing you guys. There's going to be the use of a commute log that you're expected to fill out. Every time you take a trip, you'll basically log the passengers that get onto your bus. And the purpose for this is contact tracing. So if we come up with a positive case and we have a name of that individual, we'll be able to tell which vehicle they went on. We'll be able to identify the persons that they may have been in close contact with, and even the driver. You're expected to log your information on that log as well. Also, even though you're not Gold Seal approved at this junction, I will encourage you to erect the barrier, the plastic barrier or plexiglass barrier in your vehicle as an extra level of protection for you, the driver. Because after it's all said and done and you walk away from the Pier Park tomorrow, you have to consider yourself. The number one aspect in this is safety, and your families as well. You and your families remaining safe. So even though you're not Gold Seal approved and you might not have passed that pre the arrival of the cruise line, I will encourage you at this junction to go and get your plastic barrier erected in your vehicle going forward. Okay? So tomorrow, when you show up, you'll be handed a commute log. You'll probably be given 2 or 3 sheets of paper, and they'll be turned in to the inspectors at the close of the day. So every time you go on a trip, you're expected to log the portions in your vehicle and hand it over to the inspectors at the close of the day, okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. And now for the good part, your questions to the panel. So there's a roaming mic moving around, so if you stick up your hand quickly, the mic will be brought to you. And we are asking 1 question per person at a time. We address the question with the answer, and then we go to the next question.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Spinks. Yeah, you said the 14-passenger vehicle will be, the capacity will be 7, but you didn't say how much will be for the 28 or the 27-passenger vehicle.
Okay, well, what you would do in that respect would be similar to we're sitting here in this room. It will be every other seat. So if you carry, let's say you carry 5 persons on your front seat, you're expected to take 3. And so forth, and stagger the passengers in the vehicle as you go ahead like that. Okay? Also, you're not allowed to carry anybody in the front seat next to you.
Next. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Mario. I heard you spoke about sanitizing, and then you do it, spray out your car. So if we're doing that, what is the purpose for the plastic inside when we have to interact with the passengers? We have to open the door, we have to let them in. What is the purpose for the plastic? Because we write with the passengers all the time.
Well, Mr. Smith, that is just, I thank you for your question, but that is just the extra level of protection. The additional layer of protection, okay? In some cases, I understand that it gets a bit difficult for South-speaking individuals to interact with the passengers, but similar to sanitizing your hands and whatever the case is, it is that extra layer of protection that you may need just to keep you and your family safe.
Next question.
Good evening. My name is Alvin Smith. When the ships return and have, as I drove around, even to today, I still see we have a lot of overhung branches. So if some of these tourists are in these safaris, what would happen to their faces when they turn certain corners? Just observation.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you for that observation. That is something that the Public Works Department, we are working on getting those bill of quantities to the ministry so we could get those areas addressed. So I would say it may not be on this trip, but the following trip that the ship is here, most of the areas would be cut.
Afternoon. Where the line have to start at number 1? Where you can't start? Where you've ended? The lane. The lane for the bus them?
Oh, well, in all fairness, I'm not sure if anybody knows where the line ended. We've been out of business now for a year plus. Huh? And, I just found it simpler that we just go back to square one. Thanks for the word. we've in meetings we've had we've posed ourselves, and other people have posed me with some of the same questions, and we've brainstormed and you know, come up with different, you know, rationale, but decided that we should start at number 1.
Good evening, guys. My name is Fred. Fred, you spoke about families. If a family is doing a tour in, let's say, a safari or a small bus, and the families are about 10 person, what is the procedure with that?
Well, similar to what we've been dealing with now. If a family of 10 comes, you have a 14-seater, you could take the family of 10. They've traveled together, they've roomed together, so naturally they've put the social distancing aside. So you'll exhibit it in your vehicle. You could take the family of 10. Okay, good.
Yes. Alan Calwood. I drive a pickup with a extra cab. So I don't have to take nobody inside with me. So why am I not a gold seal?
Why are you not a gold seal? You have a safari, you said? The mini cab? Okay. Well, firstly, I didn't see you come to apply to be a gold seal operator. We didn't decide nobody can be a gold seal operator. But be that as it may, we didn't gold seal safaris because we weren't using much of them during the quarantine period. There were some funny little areas. We're going up some hills. Some of the fast safaris can't get to those areas. And like I say, again, it was open for you to decide whether or not you wanted to take part in the initiative. Okay? Yeah.
Maxim Titley here. Will the passengers be wearing masks?
Most definitely, Mr. Titley. That is one of our protocols. Social distancing, the wearing of masks, the use of sanitizing, and so forth.
The passengers, yeah.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Good evening, Derek Tuckett. In the interest of contact tracing, you're providing us with papers to write down the name of the guests and ourselves. So my question is, if I take in passengers to the beach, my name down, their name down, am I the one guaranteed that I'm going to be bringing them back? Because, you know, we have a system down on the beach sometimes. You don't bring back who you carry. So how do you walk out that path with the coming back and making sure it's the same people I bring in back so that I know contact tracing will go on and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah. I would suspect it operates more or less as it did. You would be in control of whether you book your round trip or your tour or whatever the case is. In going forward, well, as you operate tomorrow, you'll be, quote unquote, some sort of your security officer. So you would be responsible for the persons that you pick up and you take on tour, you take to the beach or whatever the case is. Whether they decide to come back with you, that's a whole other story. But within your vehicle, you're responsible for that bunch. So you're expected to produce those logs for contact tracing around that area. Okay?
I just wanted to also mention that if you take them from the cruise ship to Kingan, that is a trip, and if they join your taxi again, then you just relog them, just for a matter of safety. Because if there's a system on the beach, then somebody else might take them, and whoever vehicle they get on, then they would just log their names as well.
Thank you. Next question, please.
I forgot to ask one more question. I heard you say that you limit the 14-seaters to 7. Now, before we had kids like the age of 12 and still looking for half price. Have we make adjustment in the tariff that these kids can be charged as an adult?
If I understand the question correctly, you are asking if there has been an adjustment made in the tariff, and the answer to that is no. The tariff has not been adjusted. When that is done, first off, you as the public transport operator will be fully consulted in the process, because we would not be adjusting the tariff in isolation. The tariff would be a global or a holistic review of the tariff in addition to the children price as you mentioned. And at that time, all would be involved, and the final decision as to what the new prices are would be widely circulated. So the answer to your question is no at this time.
So we would say that if a family comes with 2 kids, that would be counted one person.
No, however it's been before is how we expect it to carry forth. Pardon me? Well,
the kids?
Well, at the same time, you're expected to make that judgment call. If they're lap infants or toddlers, they're considered a human being, so I can't say 7 in that respect. But based on your capacity, you will make the judgment as to how many you can seat while practicing the social distancing within your vehicle.
Just before the next question, I just wanted to put a piece of information in. Based on the information we have, there will only be 10 children tomorrow, 10 people on the 16. Okay? So just in terms of logistics, that's the sort of number we're looking at.
Thank you for that question. Next question, please. Remember, this is your forum to ask your questions, get answers to it, as we are on the eve of the resumption of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands. And it is our mission to make this a success and a model going forward. So, your questions, please.
Good day, Richard. We were just wondering about the entry fee. Would that be the same?
Yes. And the office opens at 7 o'clock in the morning. The ship arrives at 7:30. The ship arrives at 7 o'clock. The office opens at 7:30. Fees will not change. You will find tickets stamped the 1st of July 2021, and those are the valid tickets for tomorrow.
Raise your hand if you have a question.
Well, I'm surprised that you have tickets still from, 16 months ago?
I got a question, right? So
Mr. Lewis has answered the question on the tickets, so I think that's quite self-explanatory.
Here's the deal, right? The tickets were purchased from the pay pack, right? So if you have old tickets, come in tomorrow into the office, we'll change them out for you. Okay? But we don't want a whole lot of very old tickets from before the hurricane.
With the second vaccine, right? Why you have to be a whole 14 days, and why you can't decrease from 14 to 7?
Okay, please, we all need to listen to one another so that everyone can have an opportunity and a benefit to hear the proceedings. Remember, we are also recording this for the benefit of your fellow public transport operators who are not present. They are listening in cyberspace. They need to be able to hear. So let us respect one another. We have a question from the front.
I was asking, with the second vaccine, you guys said it would have been 14 days, but why can't it decrease from 14 to 7? I can't answer that question for you, Mr. Green. That's a health question. I'm not a doctor. Okay.
We'll be logging these people. You got to make it clear if you're logging them going and logging them coming back, even if you do carry the same set.
Mr. Titley, you have participated in the QBS.
Yeah,
So I think you know how that procedure works.
I'm
But
speaking for everybody.
for the
to
benefit of
understand
the
it.
individuals that didn't partake in that,
Yeah.
every time you make a trip and persons get onto your bus, you're expected to log those individuals. Whether you decide to use the same sheet and indicate that these persons took a wrong trip, whenever these individuals get onto your vehicle, you're expected to enter them into the log, the time you left, the time you arrived. Upon the close of the day, those logs will be handed in to the taxi and livery inspectors who will be at the pier. Okay? So you could just find one of them, hand it to them, they'll log it and take it back to the hub. Okay? Any other questions?
Hi, good afternoon. I was considering, no one mentioned anything about passengers that will be roaming. Will there be any passengers roaming without actually hopping onto a bus? You know, we usually have passengers that want to freelance, essentially. Will there be any of that, or all passengers, in order to move throughout the territory, they have to go with one of the shuttles?
So it's basically free flow since everybody's vaccinated. So there may be passengers who will come to the park to shop, want to come into Roton to have a look. I don't know how you have dealt with those who hop on, hop off in the past, but I suggest you treat it exactly the same way. With respect to the tariff. Yes?
Another question. I don't mean to be facetious with my question, but we have these airplanes and I think the ferries. They have the passengers, I guess, next to each other. They're not socially distanced in these aircrafts, right? In the future, I guess as we monitor things, do you think that you will have, you'll change that with the buses so that I guess the bus drivers can let economies of scale work for them in their favor? Adhering to, I guess.
Well, we don't want to speculate about what the future will bring, but what we want to do is to start somewhere. And then we're going to learn a lot of things tomorrow, as I'm sure you will as well, what works, what doesn't work, how to keep the territory safe. I expect, some weeks ago, we were going to do bubbles. But the protocols have evolved to a point now where we can actually do free flow. So I anticipate that in the future, you're going to have other changes as well. And you're going to have this forum convened, maybe not exactly the same people, where we're going to talk about some of the changes, some of the advancements, some of the things that we're seeing as the population gets more and more protected, and as the world gets more and more. So I don't want to speculate what might happen in the future, but what I will say is any changes, we're going to make sure we come right back here and inform you of those changes, and we can have that discussion again.
Thank you very much for your questions. It seems that you are quite content. You are well aware of what you need to do, beginning tomorrow with the resumption of cruise ship calls to the British Virgin Islands. So, in my capacity as the Deputy Secretary in the Ministry of Transportation, Works and Utilities, I want to thank you for what you will do tomorrow and what you'll continue to do as we continue to evolve the transportation for higher services in the British Virgin Islands. I will now ask the Minister for Transportation, Works and Utilities, Honorable Kai Reimer, to give his closing remarks. Honorable Reimer.
Thank you, DS, and thank each and every one of you for coming out this afternoon. Quite informative. I'm happy that things remain the same pre-COVID, and I urge you to be safe as we take persons around the territory tomorrow. A question came up pertaining to the tariff and children, and that is something that has been a conversation for quite a while. And what I can do is I have the chairman for the Taxi and Livery Commission here, and I can charge her, Ms. Lorna Christopher, so that she can get the ball rolling in terms of amending the taxi tariff and work on the consultation and then advise so that we can make the amendment. I remember coming to the department in 2010, and that was the time that that tariff actually came into force. So I think it's time for it to be amended, and we will work to get that amended so that I know the issue is per child on a lap and a child who is 12 or below, or some there's an issue for half price. So that is something that needs to be addressed, and the commission, I think it's time that we bring that forward to the taxi operators so that we can get their input and make sure that it's in line with what is happening. Because I think other jurisdiction, a child is the same as an adult. And I think that is a concern of many of the operators. So again, I say thank you. What I can also confirm to you is that we have 49 cases of COVID in the territory as of right now. I think we have about, 12 or 13 that are local cases without travel history. So I urge you to be safe, continue to practice your social distancing. For those who may still be on the fence or may want to vaccinate, I think they have 4 more days left. The facilities remain open. Those who are not, just continue to be safe, wear your mask, and keep us safe as a territory. So I thank each and every one of you for coming out this afternoon. Tourist Board, PAC, Ports Authority, Taxi and Livery Commission, and the ministries who is there present. So I say thank you, and I look forward to the next meeting. Maybe after this ship, you might have some other issues that we can definitely address. We'll be here to listen to you and hear your concerns. I say thank you, get home safely, stay on the left-hand side.
Thank you, Honorable Reimer, and I want to thank you, the listening audience, for viewing this briefing, and we hope that it has been a benefit to you as the industry moves to the next level. Thank you. Have a good evening.